Hi guys, welcome back to Geeks Love Dogs, Book Dragons, and the weekly update for March 10th, 2025, where I begin to work my way through the huge TBR of books that my TBR game chose for me, and about a third of the way through the month, it's going to be a bit touch and go. So, hope you'll join me and see what I can manage. On a side note, there's an anomaly regarding these weekly updates that me and, well, actual popular booktubers do, where the weekly updates do not get a lot of views, do not get a lot of watch time. And the irony of that is it's when we actually talk the most about the books we've read and we're reading and will read. It's when we give the most information and mini reviews and such. But for some reason, they aren't popular. But I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you spending your valuable time with me, and I will do my best to make it worth the effort you've put in to be here. I hope that makes sense. Babbling again. All right, so how about we go on to what I've read this week? All right, let's make room, and we'll start with Ed McDonald's Raven Cry. This is book 2 of the Raven's Mark series by Ed McDonald. Being that it's a book 2, I'm not going to give you a lot of details in case you haven't started the series yet, and I don't want to spoil anything. But I will say I am a big fan of these covers. They fit the feel of the books really well. That's book 2. Like I said, I've finished 1. Here's book 3. And I got to say, they're simple, but I don't know. They're appealing, and I think they fit the feel of the books. So let's talk about Raven Cry. This series as a whole is dark fantasy, grim dark fantasy maybe, but it has definitely a feel like it's combined with Lovecraftian horror. And that makes it dark and it makes it fun. But there's a third element to these books. As you're reading it, it also feels like it's done from a perspective of a Western writer. And I can't really explain it. There's just a feel. And if you're combining dark fantasy with Lovecraftian horror and a slightly Western feel to it, it's a very unique series that Ed McDonald is crafting here. It feels different than almost anything I've read. Red Country by Abercrombie kind of touched on the Western, and there's different things that mix genres for sure. But this one, it feels very unique to me. Now, this is book 2 in a 3-book series, and most of us have experienced the middle book syndrome in the fantasy series. But I want to tell you, something else McDonald's managed to do is make each book seem to feel like its own entity. Now, there is an overarching story that's in the background that you definitely feel and you're definitely part of. But first book and the second book now have had stories that wrap up on their own. So it feels very self-contained while still having that overarching story that you can latch on to continue the series and make you want to continue reading. The story feels fun and fresh while still being dark. McDonald does not waste a lot of time on bloat in his books. Everything in the book feels like it belongs there. He's not trying to pad his story like has become the trend and make it much more than it has to be. At under 400 pages, there's an economy of words that works. Everything seems to mean something. Everything seems to be important. There's no 4-page descriptions of outfits or meals. And so you feel like you're getting through the story without the author wasting your time with excess frivolity that some authors will use just to make the books longer because it's become the trend to make it feel like you're getting more for your money. And you get plenty for your money story-wise here. You don't need the padding. So that is greatly appreciated. Book 2 extends the world building while still being a more compact, personal book than the first one. I like them both a great deal, and I really, really am looking forward to getting to the third one and finishing the series. And if it's as good, at least, as the first two, then it'll be a successful series, and I do hope to read more of Ed McDonald's stuff in the future. I do recommend this, probably 4.5 out of 5 stars if you care about that kind of thing, and you should really check it out. The next thing I read was Babel, An Arcane History by R.F. Kuang. A very dense 550 pages. This has been described by some as fantasy, and I would highly disagree. There might be some magical realism and historical fiction that I would say are much more accurate descriptions than fantasy. There's this thing that reviewers do that some people hate, where they talk about a book and they compare it to other books and other authors. Oh, this is like Game of Thrones. Oh, this is like Stephen King. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to do that with this one because that gives me a frame of reference, or lets me give you a frame of reference about how I perceive the book. And I hope you don't mind. Now picture, if you will, Hogwarts, yes, I'm going there, as a college with almost no magic. As you follow the main protagonists, a group of 4 that are all more like Hermione than any other character, and even more outcasts because 3 of the 4 are not native to Britain and instead from foreign countries who have come here to Oxford to study under a very high-end program of translations. You spend the most of the book learning about the etymology of words, where they came from, the breakdown, etc. You will know more about the history of words and language than you ever thought you would need to know, and probably will forget. And you follow them through these lessons. The magic consists of inscribing various words and their etymology history into silver bars, and these silver bars improve life in England for the people who live in England. And that's the base story of it. At least the first 3/5 are completely involved in these characters' relationships and the etymology breakdowns of words. They're lessons that you have to live through, read through, and experience with them. The last 2/5 picks up a little bit, but not enough to make me feel like I enjoyed that book. Most of the story is about etymology, trade imbalances, colonization, economy, that kind of thing, as we see our characters learn that maybe Britain isn't such a good guy in the grand scheme of things and how they treat other countries. It feels like, again, Hogwarts written by a modern Charles Dickens with the aid of the world's foremost linguist and a few notes put in by Victor Hugo to tell you about revolution and rebelling against authority, a la Les Mis. I struggled greatly with this book. Most of it just, when I got to a certain point, I was just bored and just wanted to be done. I noticed I was skimming paragraphs and having to go back and try and figure out what I just read because I was bored. My eyes were glazing over. But on a positive note, I want to say R.F. Kuang is probably brilliant. She writes very skillfully. She's obviously exceedingly intelligent. Her research is just amazing. But my problem is with the story. It felt more like I was reading a textbook most of the time, and that's not what I wanted. So I really did not enjoy what I was reading. If you enjoy stuff like the breakdown of words and their history to a huge degree, where you can read a book that is mostly about that, as well as feel comfortable with the idea that there's very, very little fantasy in this book, that it's going to delve deep into unfair trade practices and colonization and that kind of thing. If you're fine with that, then you might love this book. That's not what I went into looking for, expecting, and I was rather disappointed by that. I was not in the mindset for that, thinking it was something that it was not. So, yeah, I did not get along with this book. Maybe you will if the criteria you're looking for a book meet what I mentioned. You'll probably love it because R.F. Kuang is absolutely brilliant. I would love to have a conversation with her. She's obviously a genius. The book just didn't work for me. As far as what I'm currently reading, I still have open an ebook, The Demon in White by Christopher Rocchio. That's book 3 in the Sun Eater series. And I'm really enjoying it. I've noticed every book I seem to enjoy more. I fought against it. I went in almost hate reading the first book because of the popularity of it. And I thought, okay, it's not bad. I'll move on. I read the next novella, thought it was good. Read the second book, really liked it. Read the second novella, thought it was great. Reading this one, and it keeps getting better. So yeah, Christopher Rocchio is winning me over. It's we'll talk about that more when I finish it, but that's what I'm currently reading. Now let's talk about what I'm about to read. I am going to today probably start Married with Children versus the World, which is a nonfiction book that is the inside story on the comedy, the show that launched on Fox and changed comedy. I was a big fan growing up. It came out when I was a teenager, and I was curious about the backstory on this. I saw Ed O'Neill talking about it on a talk show, and that's how I found out about it. And I'm very, very curious and can't wait to get into it. It's not an overly long book, so hopefully I can get through it. And if it keeps me interested, I should be able to read it pretty fast. And I'm really looking forward to it. Next up, also I hope tonight to start Weird Tales Presents Necrotech by Jonathan Mayberry. This is a Lovecraftian science fiction story that I've heard compared to everything from Stanley Kubrick to Battlestar Galactica to Edgar Allan Poe and Lovecraft, and I'm really looking forward to this. It's about 410 pages. It's a sci-fi story that involves mechs that are able to be piloted by the dead. It sounds absolutely fascinating. I am a huge sucker for sci-fi horror. The Thing and Aliens series are two of my favorite movies. I love sci-fi horror, and I can't wait to dive into this. And I can't wait to read it and come back and tell you, hopefully next week, that I finished it and what I thought of it. Let's just take a quick look at those, what I'm going to read, if you care. I'm going to use my Groot bookmark for that. And Married with Children. So, hopefully there's some pictures in there. I'd like to see the cast. Yeah, there's a few. All right. Anyway, that's what I'm going to start and what I'm going to be reading this week. Hopefully I can get through those and start something else as well. While continuing on with The Demon in White by Christopher Rocchio. Like I said, ebooks I read a little slower, so I'm about, a quarter of the way through that. So we'll see where I end up at the end of the week. Whoops, my apologies. As for what I watched, you can probably guess if you saw the thumbnail. That would be Smile 2. It was free on Amazon, I believe, so I checked it out. I saw the first one, wasn't really that impressed. Didn't have much going on. The second one is leaps and bounds better, I think. A lot more happening, a lot more action. You get a lot more world building. You still don't know exactly what the thing is, but it gives you more information. Definitely has more action scenes and more story that's exciting and scary. The beginning had a great shot, one of those one shots where they follow along and don't cut as the action happens, and that was a lot of fun. I love those. I think the first time I saw it was in the Daredevil series, and that was good. But it's definitely leaps and bounds better than the first one. I don't know if I probably won't ever rewatch it, but it was okay. And as far as what I've listened to, this week I thought I'd check out Jonathan Young's Sea Shanty Metal. That's right, Jonathan Young turned sea shanties into metal songs. It was fun. It was cool. Check it out. It's on Spotify. Listen to it if it sounds like something that might catch your attention or you might have an interest in. And I appreciate you who stay and listen to me talk about what I watched or what I listened to. That means a lot that you actually care or you can't reach the remote. But in any case, thank you for showing up. Come back next week. I'll have more of what I read. I'll be other videos interspersed when I can. And I appreciate you showing up. Please like, comment, subscribe, and come back for more. And I hope you have a good day. Appreciate you.